Hi guys, it's Catherine, and today it's time to talk about how 2018 was in terms of reading. We're going to do a little bit of an overview of 2018 as well as a check-in of my goals from last year that I totally did not remember that I had made until like sometime in December, that I had made a whole video. Well, it wasn't the whole video but I made a video in which I talked about goals for 2018 pertaining to bookish related things, and I just did not remember any of those goals during the year, so I didn't make a conscious effort to fulfill any of them. But we're still going to talk about them because I accidentally achieved some of them, so... And then I'm going to share with you guys how 2018 actually went in terms of reading, at least. And then, because I feel, I'll explain it better later, but my worst and best books of the year don't quite, not deserve, but like, it's just, I'll explain it. Worst and best books of the year will be included in this video. I've already done and uploaded my 2019 goals for 2019. So if you want to check out that video, I'll have a link down below if you want to check it out. I need to stop reading myself. Let's get into my goals that I had made for myself for 2018. So like I said, I didn't remember that I had these at all for like the whole year. I think after I made them, I just kind of forgot about them because I don't even remember thinking about like, oh, I need to do this or that at any point during the year. So the first one that I had down, if I had like come up with any like on the spot during the video, I didn't include them in this because I just wrote down what I had written down then, so sorry. Also, if you want to check that video out, I'll have a link down below. Read more sci-fi. That was one of my goals for 2018, and I didn't consciously do that, but I did read more sci-fi, I think. Didn't fact check this, sorry, than the year before. I really like sci-fi and I think I read a good amount of it. I've definitely been collecting more sci-fi books on my TBR so that I can get to them in the future, and I read some pretty solid ones this year. So I accidentally achieved this goal, check. The next one is absolutely like the negative of it happened, basically. I don't know. Does that make sense? But it is to do more reviews. In 2017, when I made this goal, I had done a few reviews. I made this goal so that I could get better at reviews. Wrap-ups are basically reviews, yes, I know. But in this goal, I kind of meant more like written out reviews for like Goodreads, or a video review pertaining to like one book, instead of like wrap-ups where it's just a whole bunch of them. And in like reviews, you break it down very critically. I'm not a critical reader, so I don't like, after I finish a book, I'm like, I should make a review of this, because just sometimes I feel like I didn't pay attention where I should have in order to speak properly on a certain thing. I don't know. But I did absolutely no reviews this year. I did not make a single review video for like one book or anything, just my wrap-ups, and I didn't even do Goodreads reviews. I just gave my stars and I was gone. The next goal that I had was take part in at least more than one readathon. And another one that I had no idea and that I accidentally achieved. I took part in 2 readathons. The first one was the Booktubeathon, of course, I participate in every year. And the second one, if Penguin Teen hadn't contacted me for it, I would not have achieved this goal accidentally. I tried to participate in the Fall Into Fantasy readathon hosted by Penguin Teen, and I read 1 book for that readathon, so it counts. The next goal, which I like this goal, but again, forgot about it, is to finish books that I DNF'd in 2018 that I'm still interested in reading, because DNF does not necessarily mean that I didn't finish it because I buy book. There are some books where I just like stopped reading for whatever reason, but I do want to get back to. The only book that I could literally remember that I DNF'd in 2017 is The Lies of Locke Lamora. Like, I've literally been thinking about that book for so long and I don't know why. I just need to get back to it and finish it. But I did somewhat achieve this goal. I did read 1 book that I did not finish in 2017, which was The Cruel Prince. And lastly, yes, I do the Goodreads reading challenges. I know some people don't do it, some people are against it. I don't care. You do you. I like doing reading goals. I don't like feel bummed out if I don't reach my goal. I just like having the goal to try to reach, and if I don't make it, then it's like whatever to me. We'll try again next year. So but yeah, my reading goal for 2018 was 65 books. And so let's start my review, my overview, that is, of 2018 reading related. I read a total of 35 books. My goal was 65. Like I said, I'm not bummed out about it because I know the reasons why I didn't achieve it throughout the year. And like, this was a goal that I actually had in mind all year. I knew that I wanted to get to 65, but there were just things that hindered me from reading as much as I thought I could have or wish I had. I read 40 books in 2017, and so I'm down 5. We'll try better next year. So some stats from my Goodreads 2018 overview. The shortest book that I read was Beastly Bones by William Ritter, and this is the second book, To Jacoby. This book I liked less less than Jacoby. Jacoby was better. This I listened to an audiobook. I didn't enjoy it as much. It just really lacked what I really enjoyed from Jacoby. So still would continue on the series. I just haven't yet because they didn't have the third audiobook in my library. And the longest book that I read was Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. I actually went to a signing of it in the beginning of the year whenever this was released. I went to the release signing in New York City and I met Ashley Poston and I got my book signed. Voila. But yeah, I have that book physically, but I listened to it on audiobook. And that's also a sci-fi book, so there you go, I read a sci-fi. The most popular book that I read this year was To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. And this was because I watched the movie and I enjoyed the movie enough to read the book. And this is also the first contemporary that I finished in more than 2 years. Oh my god. I was shooketh. A lot of you were shooketh. If you're new here, I don't read contemporary like ever. It's just not my cup of tea. I have nothing against contemporary. I just don't enjoy it as much and I'm busy reading fantasy books. So I've said in the past, and it comes into play here, that you have to show me the movie first to get me to read a contemporary or just fiction book. Call Me By Your Name I'm talking about. I started listening to that book, but I never finished it. It's not making this list. Yeah, so I watched To All the Boys I Loved Before, and I really enjoyed it, and I've seen it many times. It's just such a cute movie that I was like, this has to be a really cute book, and it was, so. The least popular book that I read this year, and these are like most popular as in like how many people have read it, not how many people liked it or disliked it. Anyways, the least popular book is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. And if you haven't been around, Danielle L. Jensen is one of my favorite writers, and she wrote one of my favorite books, which is Stolen Songbird, which I talk about a lot, but I feel like I haven't talked about in a while. That was my favorite book of 2017. Came out with a new book this year called The Bridge Kingdom. It came out on Audible as an audiobook. Only format audiobook right now, and I listened to it and I really enjoyed it. Not as great as Stolen Songbird, but I still enjoyed it. She didn't let me down. And so with that brings me to how many out of the books that I read this year were actually audiobooks. Out of the 35 books that I managed to finish this year, 32 of them were audiobooks. And of course, obviously I don't have anything against audiobooks, but that's just baffling to me. I heavily depended on audiobooks this year, and if it weren't for them, I probably would not have read as much. Firstly, because I was so busy in the beginning of the year, and then other reasons in the latter half of the year. Wait, I meant 32 1/4 audiobooks. Get that right. The amount of physical books that I read were 2 3/4, but in actuality, I only fully finished within 2018 one physical book. I finished The Cruel Prince, like I said, from 2017. In 2018, during the Booktubeathon, that was physical. I started it in 2017 though. And then the 3/4 is Warcross, which I read 3/4 of it physically, but then I just couldn't finish it, so I just forced myself to listen to an audiobook, so that's where the 1/4 comes from for audiobooks. Oh, and the one book that I've read fully physically was A Million Junes by Emily Henry, and I read that as well during the Booktubeathon. Oh my goodness, what a year it's been. So now let us move on into the worst and best books of 2018. They don't really warrant their own video. There weren't really any books that I really hated this year. There were a couple that were just kind of like bad in a way, or just not that great, you know? So let's get into it. The first one is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a book that I had anticipated that I would really enjoy. It was something that sounded really good. I had heard great reviews of it, but once I started it, the beginning of the book was absolutely so slow, and I like slow books. One of my favorite books of the year is a slow book, but this was like slow in a boring way. You know, slow books can make the slowness interesting. This wasn't. The beginning of it was literally like, I couldn't deal with it, but I powered through it. And towards the middle got a lot better, and then I enjoyed the second half. So this is a great lesson in why you shouldn't rate a book when you DNF it, because if I had rated Uprooted based on what I had read, it wouldn't have gotten the rating that it did, you know? If you're not gonna give a book a chance, give it a chance, you know? Next we have Gunslinger Girl, and this was a book while I was listening to it, I was just kind of consuming the story. Unlike while I was reading, I was thinking, oh, this is like alright, average. I wasn't really thinking too much into it. But then after I finished it and like upon reflection of it, it was just kind of weird and a little bit problematic in some areas, and just overall not the best. A lackluster one. And then I thought that was it, but then I remembered that I read Daughter of the Siren Queen this year, which is the second book to the Daughter of the Pirate King, and this book was very disappointing for me. I really enjoyed Daughter of the Pirate King because while it wasn't like a big masterpiece or anything, it was still an enjoyable like story tale to follow along. It's about pirates, obviously, Daughter of the Pirate King. And so I had pretty average expectations going into this Daughter of the Siren Queen, and it was just like nothing happened. Our main character, who I really enjoy in the second book, the characteristics I enjoy about her were kind of taken away. They were kind of lost. As well as this book and the story and the plot of this book was really boring. Like nothing happened. There was, Daughter of the Siren Queen is probably the worst of all these three. So this year was kind of a rough year for me personally, and so I feel like a lot of what was going on between my reading made me kind of forget what was happening. Like I'd finish a book and I'd be like, oh, this is a really good book, and then, you know, something would happen, and then, you know, by the time now I'm sitting here, I don't completely remember why I really loved a certain book or anything, and I feel like I loved certain books more than I can remember now, and so in the end it hurts my soul. But in the end right now, I feel like there's not just one book that I loved overall this year. Nothing like how Stolen Songbird, like I mentioned before, was for me last year in 2017. But I will still share a little list of the books that I really enjoyed this year. The first one being The Shadow Queen by C.J. Redwine. I won't get too into these books, but this is the first book in this series. You don't have to read the series in order, but I wanted to. But this book I really enjoyed. It was kind of a very loose retelling of Snow White. Very loose. I love how the author took the story though, and it's basically a standalone. It can stand on its own without reading any of the other books in the series because they all follow different main characters. Jacoby by William Ritter. This was another book that I really enjoyed that I mentioned just before. This is like a very fun, fantastical mystery that just kind of reminded me of like the good old days when I used to read like the Happy Hollister books. But Jacoby just kind of felt like a matured version of that with fantasy and like something that I would really like. So I really enjoyed Jacoby. Like I said, I didn't enjoy Beastly Bones as much, and I haven't read the third or the fourth books yet because my library doesn't have them. And I have the physical book of the third book, but I just don't have it with me. It's packed away in storage. This book pains me to speak about. This was probably my favorite book of the year. Again, doesn't live up to Stolen Songbird, but still probably my favorite of the year. Problem with it is that the third book, Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the second book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. The first book is Stalking Jack the Ripper. I read the first book, enjoyed it enough to continue on to the second book, which the second book I really loved. The story that took place in this was great. It dealt very well with a lot of issues, which I really enjoyed. But then the third book came out this year, which I was highly anticipating. I hyped it up so much in my videos, and I can't do anything about those videos. They're already out there in the universe, so if somebody doesn't see me complaining about the third book now, then they'll just I don't know. But the third book takes the story in a way that I do not appreciate at all from the author. Bad. So it pains me to talk about the second book, even though I enjoyed it so much, because it's like the second book was so good. You'll want to read the third book, but then it's not worth it. So the next book is Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. This book is about Vikings. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a standalone book. Loved it. The next two are my most recent reads. The first one being Damsel by Alana K. Arnold. This book was so good. It takes your classic damsel in distress who is rescued by a prince from a dragon that lives in a tower, and the author just takes this story and just does amazing things with it. It's nothing like, oh my god, so adventurous, like, you know, how our usually YA fantasies go. Like I said, I'm not gonna get too into these books, but like, oh, maybe this is one of my favorites of the year. Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This is the last book that I finished this year, but it is also so good. I've heard a lot of people say it's like anime in book form. I don't watch a lot of anime, so I can't really speak to that. But what I loved so much about this book is how it really follows the classic hero's journey tale. Like within your usual YA, you can't really obviously see the elements of the hero's journey. If you know what I'm talking about, the hero's journey. I'm not gonna explain it. This book overall was just really good as well. Again, one of my more top favorites of the year. Apparently it wouldn't be a video of mine if I didn't have a voiceover insert because I messed up. But I did mess up. I forgot. It was on the list. I'm blind apparently. I forgot to mention The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. This is a book that I also really enjoyed. It's a slow book, like I had mentioned earlier in the video. This book is basically not about the chosen one, but like somebody else within that person's story. And the chosen one isn't even like a center focus of this, but that was another book that I really enjoyed this year. I also think Truth Witch belongs on this list, but I honestly can't remember how much I liked Truth Witch. Probably should have gone and watched my January wrap up again just to see. Did I even do a January wrap up? I do remember really enjoying Truth Witch, but I honestly don't remember anything about it anymore because it was in the beginning of the year and a lot has happened this year that has just taken up the brain space. But anyways, in the end, 2018 was kind of a really bad year for me, but a lot of good things did happen this year, and I'm so thankful to you guys who watch my videos. Of course, it means a lot to me. In 2018, in November, I reached 2K subscribers, and I've also achieved. I was so happy. It's very exciting, and so I must thank you so much for that. I really hope 2019 treats you all well. Please, I hope you have a good year. I hope I have a good year as well. Here's to 2019. Hopefully you can stick with me through this new year. If you want to follow me on any of my social medias, they're always linked down below if you'd like to check them out. And yeah, let's, get the spread in 2019. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!
I was yours on Sunday, while we watched the children play. We fell deep in love again, like we always do.